Hello and welcome back to Massalia Tales. In the last episode, it looked like the Carthaginians were starting to win their war with the Celt-Iberian Confederation. For us, this meant the Carthaginians could take key territory that we needed, so we decided to join the war, using it as an excuse to rekindle our defensive alliance with the Carthaginians. So now we have a long hostile border to the west that Gelon and his companion Bendis were quick to exploit, moving forward to besiege two positions there in Gallia, and Eusebius besieged one on the Iberian Peninsula. Bendis ended up facing the garrison of Bibracte, the city he was besieging. The enemy just charged his lines and left themselves open to a massive cavalry attack from the rear that wiped out all their light forces, meaning he could easily outflank the enemy with his numerical advantage. Eusebius found himself having an advantage over the forces he was besieging in Iberia, so he decided to go into the assault, attacking the town from 4 directions at once. The enemy only defended 2, so although there was some heavy fighting where they did defend their areas, we managed to surround and defeat them relatively easily. Now let's continue. With Bibracte secured and the Celt-Iberians out of options, it looked like both Eusebius and Gelon were about to expand their respective domains. But for Eusebius there was a sudden hesitation. He realized that he was playing the game he condemned, the game of politics that placed no value on the lives of the conquered. To Eusebius, that was no way to create a stable and prosperous republic. He decided that rather than become the overlords of the new lands he had taken control of, he would allow the Iberians the right of self-determination, a rare move that shocked Gelon and perhaps reminded Crethius that he once would have done the same. That's right, Eusebius has defeated the Celt-Iberians here at Brigantum in a heroic victory with very few losses, but he is not going to occupy this settlement. One motivation is that the Carthaginians control this province, so having this little region within it isn't too convenient. Also, giving myself a nice strong ally here will be useful if a war is to start, especially because they started with a full stack of troops. So Eusebius can now head back south to continue patrolling southern Iberia, improving the public order there, whilst Brigantum is going to remain under the safe control of its former masters, the Iberian tribes who used to rule it before the Celt-Iberian Confederation presumably conquered them or brought them into the Confederation forcibly. So they'll now sit there as my military ally. I actually thought they might start as my client state, but they start as a military ally, having liberated them with extremely good relations towards me. So they're going to be a quite loyal ally, at least hopefully. It does say they're devious, but the fact they really like me should keep them under control. I'm going to start trading with them to build up our relationship even further and get some more cash off them. The Celt-Iberians in Gallia then decide they're going to attack. They sally out to attack Gelon sitting outside the city. The enemy's army isn't particularly good, the balance bar's in our favour, but once again it's a case where an auto-resolve would give us a really bad result, so we have to do it ourselves just to maintain the integrity and experience of these troops. A Pyrrhic victory, even one of the options there in the auto-resolve. So we're going to have to do this one ourselves. Let's prove that auto-resolve wrong. The battlefield has a big hill in the middle, and my deployment zone was closer to the top than the enemy, so I decided I would rush to try and take the top. Among Gelon's forces, you can see we have these Celto-Hellenic hoplites. These are actually a sword unit, a very heavy sword unit as well, a powerful unit combining the tactics and equipment of Hellenistic units with the raw strength of Gallic units, a nice Massalian specialist unit that Gelon is going to try and use to beat the enemy here. I'm sending a massive amount of cavalry to occupy another hill just to the east of the current hill I'm moving on to. And as my cavalry go up, they manage to spot a few of the enemy units. It looks like the enemy are doing the same thing as me. They're rushing up the hill, but unfortunately for them, they're not going to be able to reach the top before me, so I managed to take the high ground. Their leading units come in to engage. Here you can see they're sending armed townsfolk to engage the heavy forces of my line alone. Obviously not a very good idea. Same thing's happening here actually. Their general with some armed townsfolk attacking these hoplites. That's not going to work either, but now the rest of their forces will start coming in to engage. They've got javelins who can do damage to my heavy forces, but once they get close they'll be in trouble. Especially because here you can see Gelon has some Massalian veteran swords, even better than the Celto-Hellenic hoplites. We'll be able to rush forward and cut a path through the enemy's inferior swordsmen here. So they should have a relatively easy time of it. Plus we've got a bit of high ground and we've got missile support. We managed to stop the enemy's entire line. Our line is actually a bit wider than theirs, so we're also going to get a chance to outflank them. And all along the line, the enemy has no chance of breaking through, so it's very safe for me to do this flanking maneuver. Plus, of course, the enemy doesn't have any cavalry. I have loads, so very quickly we're starting to get a strategic advantage. One point of my line wasn't engaged here, so I decided to charge down with these hoplites. A little bit dangerous because this is going to leave them vulnerable to being surrounded, plus they're being bombarded by the enemy's missiles as they go down. But once they're in combat, they should have a quite easy time. So back up in the centre, the Celto-Hellenic hoplites have cut a path through the enemy easily as expected, as have the veteran swords. So the enemy's centre is pretty much gone now. So they're going to have a chance to now go and surround the other enemy units who are holding out. The enemy's spears tend to hold out longer than the swords. They do have some town champions in here who haven't fallen back, a superior sword unit, but it shouldn't take long to get rid of them. All of the enemy's lighter units, their missile units, are being completely obliterated by my cavalry who are just attacking them with impunity. And you can see Gelon as well is deploying his heavy cavalry to smash some enemy units. He is also coming down to help out this squad of hoplites, which actually did get surrounded, as I thought might happen from risking that maneuver going forwards. But they were saved by Gelon and the fact that they weren't really being killed by the enemy anyway because they're so good. So very soon it was just a matter of using my free cavalry to smash into the backs of the remaining enemy units. That causes all of the surviving enemies to rout. A heroic victory is declared for Gelon. We definitely proved that balance bar wrong. I don't think we took many losses at all, and the enemy's casualties would have been extreme. So now the fate of the settlement should be sealed. We'll see once we get back to the strategy map. You say he's untrustworthy, yet I think there are certain things you can trust Master Gelon to do. You can trust him to be rude, you can trust him to further his own ambitions with public money, and you can trust him to make you rather rich if you support him. I much prefer being stuck here with Gelon rather than Eusebius or Cretius. Those two seem to change their minds on everything 5 times before they rise from bed in the morning. It would be nice if we could all just get along, but I think the gods don't find that entertaining, so give men such as these great power to see what happens. If we're lucky, we'll live to die of old age. So with the battle over, it's time to have a quick look at the results. The enemy force was almost completely defeated. We destroyed half of their army and the surviving units are all damaged, and Gelon's army took almost no losses whatsoever. So overall we've completely destroyed the garrison of this city, and we're going to enslave the large number of captives we took, and very soon the city will fall into our hands. I thought it was time to check back in with Ifyanasa. She has been scouting out the Egyptian Empire, seeing just how big it really is. So far, we know it stretches along Eastern Africa and up into Turkey and through the Middle East. And I also suspect it stretches south along the settlements that run along the Nile there. So overall, probably a pretty big empire to contend with. We'll perhaps get back to them later on. Now it's time for Gelon to finish off the battle at Burdigala. The enemy inside have pretty much nothing left, so now the balance bar is so far in our favour that even weird balance bar glitchiness can't deny that we're going to win this battle. A quick auto resolve finishes off the defenders. So we've now taken the province of this capital, Aquitaine, and as I mentioned, I don't know if there being any other Celt-Iberian forces in the area, so we should be able to go and take both of the other settlements without resistance other than the garrison armies. Also, it happened to be my mission from the Timucoi to capture any settlement, so Gelon doing that has given me a bit of extra money. I can also use the elite horses that the Celt-Iberians have been raising here to further improve Gelon's cavalry, quite handy. So my spy confirms that there are no Celt-Iberian forces in the area. Both of Aquitaine's settlements are unguarded, but there is this army belonging to the Carnutes. These guys just to the north, actually, as it turns out, are an ally of the Celt-Iberians. I think they must have joined the Celt-Iberians after I declared war on them, because they weren't coming in as part of the alliance when I declared war on the Celt-Iberians. So they must have just recently made this relationship, and obviously it means they could declare war on me at any moment. They would have an easy reason to do so. The Celt-Iberians could just ask them to join the war. But I don't want to have to leave Bendis defending Bibracte against a possible Carnute invasion when I can press against Nemesis, which is undefended, and capture it quickly. Bibracte has a okay garrison army inside it, not enough to hold off an assault by the full Carnate stack we see standing there, but I decide to gamble that the Carnates won't have the guts to declare war on me, so Bendis is going to head down and besiege Nemesis. It's a favourable balance bar, but again I'm just going to leave that as a siege because the auto-resolve won't be very good, so hopefully the Carnates won't exploit this weakness that I've opened up to them. Now moving on, we can have a look at the Celt-Iberian fleet. This fleet is their last major force that I know of that's sitting off here in the sea and could potentially come and attack Burdagala or move southwest and attack the newly freed tribe at Brigantum. So we'll have to wait around to see what they do. In the end turn sequence, we get attacked by those guys at Nemesis. And it's really quite a similar battle to many of those we've seen recently against the small Celt-Iberian garrison army. This time, despite the bad looking auto-resolve, I wasn't really willing to fight. I decided I'd just go with the auto-resolve, especially because keeping the experience level and integrity of the Heralds of Massalia isn't too important to me. I managed to get a close victory with extreme casualties, just like the balance bar predicted. I don't know what happened considering how superior our troops are to the enemies, but anyway, the enemy have been defeated, they have a few survivors, so the siege will continue. The Celt-Iberian fleet moves westward, away from Burdagala, so that's useful at least. They now can't get back towards my recently captured lands. We now get an interesting offer from Bithynia, way over in the east. This is one of the many offers we tend to get from random factions over here. They want a defensive alliance and they want me to pay them a bit of money for it. Now at first I thought that might actually be useful. I'd always like to have more allies because you never know when you might need them. But actually having a defensive alliance with some random small faction isn't necessarily a good idea, because if they get attacked by some random big faction, then I might end up getting called into that conflict. So I decided to leave these guys be. Perhaps later when I've expanded more, it'll be more relevant to have an alliance with them. So now in the winter turn, it's time for Bendis to finish off those guys inside Nemesis. Should be no problem now. This time the auto-resolve gives us a superb result. We wipe out the enemy, pretty much no losses, so now we can capture the region. So we've now got 2 of the 3 provinces of Aquitania, of the region, sorry, of the province Aquitania. So I'm going to upgrade this place to start converting it over to Hellenistic culture right away, because we're going to need that. There's that Celt-Iberian fleet suffering attrition way off from Burdagala. There's no way they can come back to attack it, and if they do, we can have a look here at the garrison force, which is getting bigger slowly but surely. It might even be able to hold them off. So I'm pretty safe to actually move Gelon out to continue the unification of Aquitania and even complete it, just move on up to Lemonum. I've got a spy here, so I can move the spy up to make sure there are no hidden Celt-Iberian forces just out of line of sight. Looks like the province is pretty empty, so it's going to be safe for me to move Gelon in and start a siege of Lemonum in the next turn once I have the movement points. Now I wanted to try and arrange military access with the Ardii. This was something I got for a relatively large price. I wanted it because this allows me to move forces east towards the eastern side of the Mediterranean if I need to do so, especially because they control all of Italia. Moving forces down there to naval ports could be quite handy. The Celt-Iberian fleet then moves north, which is quite interesting. They're moving away from the battleground, perhaps moving around to the northern coast of Europe, where I believe they have some more territory, often a little limb there. So Lemonum is now under siege from Gelon. I realised I could use this nearby spy to actually make things easier. The balance bar is already quite far in our favour, but if I can make it a little bit more in my favour, then I might be able to avoid some sort of really disastrous auto-resolve. So I'm going to use this Poison Wells ability with the spy, which has the chance of damaging the garrison and killing off some of their troops, making things a bit easier. Our chance of success isn't all that high, but the chance of the agent being killed isn't very high either. So I go for it. Unfortunately, the agent, Shirase, was wounded, so I won't be able to use her for a while, although I probably don't need her, given that I'm very confident the enemy don't have any forces, so I don't need any advance warning from spies. So I'll just start off a normal siege. It's likely the enemy will sally out, as they have done recently in these other sieges, so I'll just wait for that to happen. Now for Bendis, I'm going to move him back towards Bibracte, where the Carnate army is still standing ominously on the border, just across that river crossing. So by moving Bendis up to fortify this position right in front of them, I'm basically just safeguarding against a sudden attack that the Carnates might be planning. They're obviously up to something, because why else would they be standing there? Or perhaps they just think I'm going to attack them, although that's quite unlikely at this point. Now to help bend this out, I'm going to bring down my secret hidden forces, an army I've been recruiting over the last couple of turns, led by Heracleides. This is a new officer who's bringing the Eyes of Ares out to help. This army is very modern and very powerful. It has good weapons, and among it has some of our best available units, the Thorax Legionaries, basically Roman-style troops. So they are led by Heracleides, as I said. He is a 30-something-year-old man who believes in harmony between the different people, somewhat similar to Eusebius and Xenon before him. So he's a good governing type, a guy who actually just wants things to work out. But now he is a military officer, he's going to have to get involved in all of the action. We can also see here Eurysthenes has a poor background and has a trait called excellence, which makes him a superior officer. So I think that fits him quite well, a young man, veteran of the daemons of Polymus, who hopefully will manage to escape Cretheus' shadow one day. So Heracleides is going to move north. You can see up there's some more Celt-Iberian territory, which I might have to go and attack soon if I can't get peace after capturing the rest of Aquitania province. So we'll see what happens there. But if I do want to attack them, I am going to have to move through some Boii territory. I wanted to see if they would give me military access, but they're very unwilling. Even for a huge sum of money, it's not going to happen, so I might just have to offend them if it comes to that.
You think that the chance to sell our slaves to them is enough reason to let them have their way with our sworn brothers? You don't seem to understand that these Greeks are led by Gelon, the man who will chain you up for anything. If we do nothing, all that will happen is we will get to see the slave trade routes in person. All those who speak for peace are taking this chance with the lives of their families and the people who trust them to do what is right. I do not know how you can look at the armies that are crushing all of Gaul and feel that to leave your sword unsharpened is wise. Do not make a decision you will regret.
Once again, Gelon finds that the Celt-Iberian force he is besieging comes out to attack him, and similar to the previous battle at Burdigala, it's a weaker army that we're going to have to fight because the auto-resolve is being pernickety. They've got a lot of numbers, but their troops are inferior to ours, so we would expect a clear victory with a simple engagement, no particular tactics needed here. Both sides advance right at each other across the flat battlefield, charging to meet each other, clashing the lines right in the centre here. They threw their javelins forward, which will do some damage to my heavy troops, but now the men will close into close quarters engagement, and our victory is pretty much assured from this point, despite the balance bar being none too advantageous for our side. We just need to hack our way through their weaker forces using our superior men, and here you can see the veteran swords will once again be doing a good job of slashing their way through the enemy's local swordsmen. The whole line engaged right across the board, so the enemy didn't outflank us at all. We couldn't outflank them this time with our infantry, but of course we have cavalry. The cavalry can quickly sweep behind the enemy's lines and take care of all of these slingers who are just hanging around, slinging over the top at our heavy troops. So very soon those slingers will get taken out, and then these cavalry will be freed up to yet again provide some heavy charge support on the backs of the enemy's infantry. The main line just fights on. You can see from the tooltips on the right here that the enemy were taking huge casualties just fighting with our line. We've already killed about half of them just fighting with the main line, and actually the missile support behind was doing a lot of the kills. The main line itself is pretty much undented, so the enemy were failing to kill any of our troops in this engagement. You can see the spear units on both sides very unaggressively just tapping at each other. It seems that's a trait of spear units in this particular game. Anyway, a bit later on, the cavalry get ready to smash into the enemy, and as they do, the enemy very quickly start to rout, realising it's all over. Their numbers have already dwindled so much by this point, as you can see, that even without the cavalry, we were just a couple of minutes away from winning. So the enemy started to break right across the board now, freeing up more of my units to surround the remaining enemy units. It's pretty much over. Even their town champions are not going to be able to hold out for long, as this cavalry charge hits them in the back, killing some of them. This was pretty much the only unit among their army that hadn't taken casualties so far, fighting here with the Celto-Hellenic hoplites, who are perhaps about even with the town champions in terms of stats, perhaps a little bit better actually. But now they're going to get a chance to chase them down in routing and slaughter them. So very quickly, the garrison of this city has been defeated in a field battle which was quite ill-advised from their perspective. A very standard victory for Gelon, but a heroic victory nonetheless. So this means that the garrison force will not be able to resist a quick auto-resolve assault to capture the town now, and Gelon is going to have unified Aquitania, pretty much guaranteed at this point. A very nice heroic victory. Let's have a quick look at the battle results. We didn't really lose any troops whatsoever in that engagement, the enemy of course losing the vast majority of their forces. So that means the town is going to be ours very soon. It's not quite ours, they did have a few units surviving, so it doesn't surrender right away. We're going to enslave the captives there. We've put a very large number of slaves into our economy recently thanks to the Celt-Iberians. Now this vassal state of the Carthaginians decide they want a defensive alliance, but they want me to pay for it. I was willing to pay a little bit for that, it's always nice to have an extra defensive ally, but they didn't take it, so that was the end of that. Now we get a message saying there's rampant piracy in our waters, the Western Mediterranean, I presume. We have three options here about with regards to what to do about it. We can ignore it, curiously, which just gives you a penalty. I don't know why you choose to ignore it. The two good options are to recruit them, which allows you to recruit more ships temporarily, or to hunt them down, which just reduces piracy penalties. I'm going to choose that. I don't intend to recruit many ships. The Celt-Iberians are now at war with that tribe we liberated in Brigantum, so our new military ally has joined the war in our favour. It seems unlikely they're going to be able to actually get to see any action, before this war is over, since the Celt-Iberians are very hard pressed. So Gelon can now finish off Lebanon. The few survivors will not be able to hold out against an auto-resolve. We still can't get a 100% surviving force, but a few minor casualties will be enough to take this city. So that's the entire province unified. Very nice, and a level up for Gelon. So the Celt-Iberians are now in a very bad way. They still have one more province just off to the north, and Heraclides is planning to go and bring that province down. Unfortunately, as mentioned previously, he has to move through Boii territory to get there. I wanted to check again if I could convince them to give me military access, because I don't want a diplomatic penalty just because I need to attack the Celt-Iberians. So I'm going to offer them a massive sum of money to see if they'll give me military access. Apparently not. They don't trust me, even with that huge incentive. But I'm not going to let that stop my whole campaign. I just trespassed through their lands. And now let's see what penalty it has. It's actually made them really hate me. It's actually one of the biggest negative effects on their opinion to me. So trespassing seems to be a huge weakness in terms of these guys' diplomacy. They really don't like it at all. But I've done it now, so it's too late. You can see here the Carnutes, who you might have seen on the diplomacy map, also really hate me, happen to have some Celt-Iberian forces standing just on their border. I thought I probably can just about take out those Celt-Iberians without moving into the Carnute lands, because when I move up to engage, my guys will be standing on our side of the border. The enemy retreat though, then my army teleports forwards onto their side of the border. I should have predicted that would happen. So I have to move back, but now I've trespassed against the Carnutes as well as the Boii. So going back to the diplomacy map, you can see they really hate me now. There's a decent chance they're going to declare war on me, a massive hostile attitude towards me, so I'm going to have to be very careful about them. Meanwhile, Heraclides is pretty free to just continue his march north to finish off that final Celt-Iberian stronghold, which he will reach next turn. So we'll see if the Carnutes get up to any misdeeds in the meantime. We've got Gelon and we've got Bendis nearby if they do want to declare war, so this actually would be a pretty good time for them to do it, so we can react very easily. The Carthaginian vassal comes back again, demanding defensive alliance a second time, still demanding money off me, but I'm actually getting really rich, so I thought I actually would pay this money to get the defensive alliance. Since this faction is unlikely to be attacked because it's surrounded by the Carthaginians, it's more likely that that defensive alliance will work in my favour, that they'll end up joining one of my defensive wars. So it was probably a good idea to be in that alliance, but a shame we had to pay for it. Doesn't matter too much though. Now we learn that the Boii have gone to war with the Scordsi, I think they're called. That random tribe who wanted me to pay them for non-aggression. They're down here in Illyria somewhere, just behind the Dorsi forces. So the Boii will have to march through the Dorsi territory to attack them. It's good news though, because it means the Boii should be temporarily distracted, so perhaps they're not going to declare war on me, despite the fact they now hate me as a result of that minor trespass. So Heraclides is going to continue his mission and begin a siege to the final Celt-Iberian stronghold. The garrison inside is pretty good, and his army is untested. It doesn't have any experience, and he as a general doesn't have any experience. So I'm going to wait them out, start building some siege equipment, because I might get a chance to go into a siege assault there. But I think they probably will sally out given the previous precedent of Celt-Iberian strategy. The Carnutes have taken a very aggressive move of putting another full stack of forces on this river crossing over towards Leminum, so it looks like they are intending something, or at the very least they expect me to invade their territory. They have a really good general in their capital there, very high level. I expect the army he has is probably quite experienced as well if he's managed to get up to that higher level, so we may have to be careful. Bendis with the Heralds of Massalia is nearby, so if they do attack through that river crossing by him, we should be safe. At first I decided to fortify that crossing, but actually I remembered that when you fortify river crossings, it doesn't allow you to fight a river battle, and I'd rather have that than a fortification battle, so I'm going to put the fort back down. For Gelon, I can do a similar thing, move right up in front of the Carnute force and just stand off against them essentially, stopping them from potentially taking the initiative by moving into our territory after a sudden declaration of war. So if they want war, they'll have to immediately face a decisive battle, giving me a chance to end the war immediately if I can defeat them. So hopefully that situation is now safe. Moving on, the Celt-Iberians indeed do sally out against Heracles. He definitely has the advantage, so I'm expecting a victory here, but again I will have to fight it myself. It will be a chance to see these Thorax Legionaries, our elite forces, in action, see how well they actually do in combat, and a chance for Heracles to prove himself in his first major battle. We'll see that, hopefully a victory and the destruction of the Celt-Iberian Confederation on the next episode of Massalia Tales. The trespass against the Boii, although of no practical consequence, sent a wave of fear through the kingdom. Never had the Massalians shown such a lack of respect for their territory, and now that the Greek Republic had grown mighty, any sign that they did not intend to honour their long-standing non-aggression pact was to be taken seriously. So too did tension increase in the Peak, where the Timucoi debated whether to laud or condemn the bold move Heracles was enacting. He was supposedly the champion of the Republic, a man who would resolve the mistakenly large chunk of power held by Gelon and Cretheus, but his own ambitions were unknown.